In 1978, the Mustang was on the verge of extinction, bloated, slow, and mocked as a shadow of its muscle car legacy. But in a single leap forward, Ford gambled everything, with a brand new, European-inspired design on a lighter, longer chassis, and the bold return of the 5.0 badge. This is not just the reason the world fell for the Mustang again. It is how an unlikely engineering war and a marketing masterstroke transformed a forgotten has-been into an icon. So what actually happened between those make-or-break years? Ford engineers started with a blank page and a single urgent goal: to escape the Pinto-based past. The answer came in the form of the Fox platform, a modular chassis originally developed for the Fairmont. When the 1979 Mustang rolled out, it was longer, with a wheelbase stretched to just over 100 inches, almost 4 inches more than the Mustang II. Yet, in a move that defied expectations, the new car weighed about 100 pounds less. This was not just clever packaging. The unibody construction, lighter suspension components, and efficient use of space meant more room inside and a lower curb weight, all in a body that looked nothing like the old Mustang. At the heart of this transformation was Jack Telnack, Ford's design chief. Fresh from his years in Europe, Telnack brought a vision shaped by aerodynamic science and a taste for wedge-shaped slant-back silhouettes that cut through air and convention alike. He fought for a long hood, a fastback roofline, and a slim nose, features that not only set the car apart visually, but helped drop the drag coefficient well below the boxy Mustang II. Telnack later called the 1979 Mustang his breakthrough, the moment Ford finally let go of retro cues and aimed for the future. The result was the most aerodynamic Mustang ever built up to that point, a car that looked fast even when parked, and for the first time in years, felt ready to earn its badge again. By 1982, Ford faced a new challenge: winning back the hearts of drivers who craved real muscle. The answer arrived with the return of the GT badge and something that would become a legend: the reborn 5.0-liter 5.8. Officially, it was the high-output 302, but Ford's marketing team had a different idea. They called it the 5.0, tapping into the metric mindset of a new generation. Under the hood, the engine delivered 157 horsepower and 240 pound-feet of torque, numbers that finally matched the car's aggressive new look. But it wasn't just about the specs. Ford's campaign leaned hard into nostalgia with the line, "The Boss is back," a direct nod to the iconic Boss 302 of 1969. Billboards, magazine ads, and TV spots all hammered home the message: the Mustang was no longer just a nameplate. It was a promise kept. Young buyers responded. The 5.0 badge became a calling card for anyone who wanted real performance without breaking the bank. GT sales surged, and the Mustang's reputation for speed and attitude was restored almost overnight. For the first time in years, the Mustang wasn't looking over its shoulder. It was leading the pack, loud, proud, and unmistakably American. Inside Ford's engineering centers, a quiet rivalry brewed. On one side was the Special Vehicle Operations Team, SVO, with a vision of turbocharged precision. Their Mustang, launched in 1984, ditched the V8 for a turbocharged 2.3-liter four-cylinder, pushing as much as 205 horsepower and 248 pound-feet of torque by 1986. SVO engineers packed it with Coney adjustable shocks, four-wheel disc brakes, and a suspension tuned for corners, not drag strips. The SVO car had quick reflexes and was about 200 pounds lighter than a V8 GT, and it turned heads at autocross events. Road testers praised its balance, calling it the best handling Mustang yet. But the marketplace told a different story. The price tag for the SVO car hovered near $17,000, nearly $5,000 more than a 5.0 GT. For that premium, buyers got high-tech hardware and a distinctive hood scoop, but not the deep V8 rumble or the straight-line punch that defined the Mustang legend. Meanwhile, The 5.0 GT, by 1985 making 210 horsepower, cost less, sounded meaner, and delivered torque in thick waves. Mustang fans voted with their wallets. Over 3 years, SVO production barely cracked 10,000 units, while tens of thousands of 5.0 powered Mustangs rolled out each year. The sophisticated edge of the SVO car could not overcome the raw, affordable thrill of the V8. Ford's experiment with a turbocharged future faded, leaving the 5.0 as the heart and soul of the Fox Body era. The arrival of electronic fuel injection in 1986 rewrote the rules for Mustang performance. The old Holley 4-barrel carburetor was replaced by the EEC-IV computer system, letting the 5.0 V8 hold onto its muscle, 200 horsepower at first, then 225 by 1987, even as federal emission standards tightened. For the first time, backyard tuners could swap screwdrivers for laptops, dialing in power with a few keystrokes instead of jets and springs. Cold starts became effortless. Reliability shot up. Suddenly, the Mustang was just as happy crawling through morning traffic as it was tearing down a quarter mile. The 1987 redesign sharpened the Mustang's look with flush headlights and the now famous cheese grater taillights. But under the skin, the real sleeper was the LX 5.0. It packed the same V8 as the GT, but without the heavy ground effects and fog lights, making it lighter and quicker off the line. Police departments noticed too. The special service package built for highway patrols turned the LX into a pursuit machine, fast, simple, and nearly invisible to anyone not looking for trouble. For drivers and tuners, this era unlocked a new kind of freedom, the ability to shape the Mustang's character with a chip, a wrench, or a little bit of both. The Fox Body Mustang became more than just a car. It was a blank canvas for anyone with a wrench and a dream. In garages and driveways across America, owners discovered how easy it was to squeeze more power from the 5.0. Companies like Flowmaster, Steeda, and Celine saw the opportunity and built their reputations on this platform. With just a few bolt-ons, headers, exhaust, and a cam swap, a stock 225 horsepower Mustang could rocket past 400, even 500 horsepower. Classified ads filled up with parts, and weekend warriors lined the streets, each car with its own personality. The Mustang's popularity exploded far beyond car meets and drag strips. In 1990, Vanilla Ice dropped the line "Rollin'" in my 5.0, with my ragtop down so my hair can blow, and suddenly the white Fox Body convertible was a pop culture icon. MTV played the video on repeat, and the Mustang became a symbol of streetwise cool, equally at home in music videos and high school parking lots. For a generation, the 5.0 was not just transportation, it was a movement you could join, build, and show off, one modification at a time. In 1993, Ford's special vehicle team delivered the ultimate Fox Body send-off. The SVT Cobra arrived with GT 40-cylinder heads, a revised intake, and a suspension tuned for real-world grip. Its 235 horsepower V8 and 17-inch wheels set it apart, but the true legend wore an even rarer badge, Cobra R. Built for the track, the Cobra R stripped away comfort. No rear seat, no air conditioning, not even a radio. Only 107 units left the factory. Everyone sold out immediately, snapped up by racers and collectors who recognized a future classic when they saw it. Decades later, those few cars command six-figure prices at auction, a testament to their scarcity and performance pedigree. For the SVT engineers who poured their expertise into the project, the 1993 Cobra and Cobra R were more than just a finale. They were proof that the Fox Body Mustang had not only survived its turbulent beginnings, but had earned its place among automotive legends. Today, demand for Fox Body Mustangs is surging. Auction prices for 1993 Cobras now top $100,000. As car culture goes digital, the 5.0 HE's analog charm and do-it-yourself spirit matter more than ever. horsepower. It is about who gets to write the next chapter. Thanks